A Man Who Went to Mars is a romantic drama that takes place in a small village where a young girl, So-hee, has just lost her father. However, to not upset her with the reality of his death, he tells his daughter that he's actually moving to Mars, which prompts So-hee to try and contact him by sending letters to this other planet. And when her best friend Sung-jae hears of this, he decides to comfort her by intercepting these letters and writing responses pretending to be her father to encourage her to work hard and live well. It's a very sweet concept with a strong opening 20 minutes that feels slightly reminiscent of the 1979 movie The Shower, and creates a lovely foundation for their friendship while depicting Sung-jae as a kind boy, full of love and pure of heart. But unfortunately, with the passing of So-hee's father, her grandmother is unable to raise her on her own, and So-hee is sent to Seoul to live with her aunt, effectively ending their friendship as the two would go on to grow apart. Many years later, the two are now adults, and So-hee has since moved on and been out of touch. But Sung-jae remains in the village, hopeful for her return, and works as the local postman, where he now offers the same sense of comfort to her grandmother by writing letters pretending to be So-hee to assure her grandmother that she's doing well in Seoul. So it's pretty evident that even after all these years, Sung-jae's character has remained intact as he retains his inner child, even if he is perhaps a bit too simple-minded as a result. And this perspective of childlike purity and innocence is essentially the driving force of the movie, as it offers a sense of warmth and wonder that initially makes for a fairly cozy watching experience, as it's easy to root for Sung-jae and embrace in his endearing and boyish personality, even more so when So-hee surprisingly makes a return to their village, which creates a level of anticipation that some romance is on the horizon. But this is where it almost feels like the filmmakers are playing around with your expectations in regards to common tropes you'd find within the genre, as it carries a similarly pleasant vibe and atmosphere as some of the more relaxed Korean romantic dramas from the 90s and early 2000s. And then it diverts into a much colder but interesting direction that gradually becomes more heartfelt and takes some time to really settle in, as the second half of the movie is where Sung-jae has to come to terms with some of the drama that's introduced. And at the same time, his hometown is also facing threats of destruction as the government plans to build a dam that would wash away the entire village in the process. At first, this potential threat is only referenced slightly here and there, and then quickly brushed aside because of Sung-jae's uplifting attitude. But the heavier the drama becomes for him, the more the presence of this event is increased to metaphorically coincide with the direction of the drama and how it affects Sung-jae's core character, which is a pretty crucial aspect that you might want to pay close attention to. And just a quick side note, but the director here, Kim Jeong-Kwon, and one of the writers previously worked on the 2000 romantic fantasy drama Ditto, which is an incredible movie that I'd highly recommend watching if you haven't seen it. But if you have seen that movie, then you might have an idea of how the writing and direction introduces and intertwines concepts to slowly highlight and build on the reality of the environments presented in order to better ground the lead characters back in the reality of their environment. I don't want to spoil either movie though, so I won't go into further detail, but there are some similarities between them in regards to how they're constructed to make the substance and values of the story feel more impactful and resonant. Although in the case of A Man Who Went to Mars, it is on a much smaller scale, but you still get some solid concepts at the forefront, that connect and contrast with the personalities and desires of Sung-ji and So-hee due to the different upbringings they went on to have, which I think is probably the most poignant aspect of the movie that you really need to consider when assessing these characters and their actions, as I have seen some people online react negatively to one decision in particular. Personally, I thought these ideas were represented well enough to make these characters and their motivations understandable. And following this slightly more dramatic second half, the movie manages to land on an unexpectedly heartfelt note with a conclusion that's captured so beautifully that it made me experience a mix of emotions based on what's depicted and what it's trying to convey, as it kind of reflects back on the introductory premise and the entire scope of these two characters and their individual developments, and how their bond and experiences from their childhood would go on to make such a great and meaningful impact in the end. So even though there's a significant tonal shift from the happiness in the first half to the bleakness and bitterness looming over the second half, I thought the blend of tones worked well, and I would consider this to be quite a lovely movie as a whole, primarily for its strong start and finish, the charming concept, the overall sentiments of the story, and of course, the very sweet portrayal from Shin Ha-Kyun, who nicely leads the movie, alongside the beautiful Kim Hee-Sun, and a solid supporting cast who bring life to this small village. My only criticism is that I actually think it could have been a little bit longer, and the structure of the movie could have been a bit more polished. But apart from that, Kim Jeong-Kwon delivered another special romantic drama. And while I don't think it's as good as his previous movie, Ditto, I do consider this to be another underrated gem from South Korea. So if you're looking for something a bit different when it comes to the romantic drama genre, then I'd highly recommend watching this movie, and it's currently available to stream for free on Viki.